It is an old saying in the advertising trade that you sell the problem, not the solution. That helps explain why the media today are awash with images of disease, erectile dysfunction, depression, stress, attention deficit disorder, on and on. You can't escape them and the sense of the looming peril that they conjure up.
The pharmaceutical companies spend a lot of money on marketing. It's probably close to, in 2005, probably close to $20 billion.
It's well documented that the drug industry spends roughly twice on marketing what they spend on research and development. And this really demonstrates the drug industry's skewed priorities.
And though industry will say the marketing costs don't affect the cost of drugs, they do say the research costs affect the cost of drugs. So though I'm not an economist, I don't see how you can have one but not the other, and that in fact, just like the research costs may affect drug costs, I guess that marketing costs probably affect them too.
They're more interested in marketing drugs of questionable innovation to the American public than they are in researching genuinely innovative drugs that will be real breakthroughs for diseases that not just Americans but people all over the world are suffering from. So the fact that they spend twice as much on marketing as they do on research really undercuts their argument that they need the high prices that they force us to pay in order to somehow pay for all this supposedly innovative research that really isn't taking place.
My name is Gwen Olson, and I am the author of Confessions of an RX Drug Pusher. I'm a 15-year veteran of the pharmaceutical industry, and I left in the year 2000. And what I would like to do today is I would like to dispel the myth that the pharmaceutical industry is in the business of health and healing. Because in fact, what the pharmaceutical industry is in the business of doing is disease maintenance and symptoms management. They are not in the business to cure cancer, to cure Alzheimer's, to cure heart disease, because if they were, they would be in the business of putting themselves out of business, and that in fact doesn't make sense.
Politicians sell terror and fear, pharmaceutical companies sell disease. Every state and stage of existence has become a pathology in need of pharmaceutical intervention, and life itself is a petri dish of biochemical deficiency and need. Shyness is now social anxiety disorder. A twitchy tendency has become restless leg syndrome. 3 decades ago, the head of Merck dreamed aloud of the day when the definition of disease would be so broad that his company could sell to everyone like chewing gum. That day is rapidly approaching, if it's not already here. We're increasingly turning normal people into patients, said Dr. Lisa M. Swartz of the Northmouth Medical School. The ordinary experiences of life becomes a diagnosis, which makes healthy people feel like they're
Finally,
sick.
new rule, if you believe you need to take all the pills the pharmaceutical industry says you do, then you're already on drugs. Yes, it's that time in the campaign where all the candidates are presenting their health care proposals. Hillary's covers children's teeth. Edwards has one that includes maintaining gorgeous, shiny hair. And Barack Obama's involves going on Oprah, and everyone gets a gastric bypass. But none of the plans address the real problem. We won't stop being sick until we stop making ourselves sick.
Have you been diagnosed with depression and struggle with sadness?
Maybe you're scared of being criticized.
Loss of interest, aches and pain.
Always thinking something terrible.
Ask your doctor about Effects or Exile.
Ask your doctor about Cymbalta.
Talk to your doctor about Zoloft.
So talk to your healthcare professional.
Get with your doctor today.
Your doctor.
Tell your doctor.
Contact your doctor immediately.
Talk with your doctor.
In one sense, the ads have been successful. The Kaiser Family Foundation found that every dollar drug companies spend on ads brings more than $4 in additional sales. But for most others, the result has been soaring medical insurance costs, toxic side effects, and new tensions between doctors and patients who increasingly badger doctors for drugs they've seen on TV.
It's about creating a good story that uses science, that convinces a physician to think about writing a prescription.
This is not science. This is incredibly effective marketing. It has nothing to do with science.
They use what I call statistical contortionism. Basically just skew the numbers, make everything look fantastic, you hide the bad numbers.
They're learning every trick in the book. They're evolving into efficient marketing machines, and it's working.
There's definitely an unholy alliance between psychiatry and pharmaceutical sales. That's a marriage made in heaven.
They're like conjoined twins. They're joined at the wallet. And with 374 mental disorders filling psychiatry's diagnostic manual, and more on the way, business is booming. Pharmaceutical companies have expanded their roster of psychotropic drugs from 44 in 1966 to 174 today. The top 5 psychotropic drugs combined gross more money than the gross national product of each of over half the countries on Earth. Altogether, the psychiatric industry rakes in $1/3 of $1 trillion a year.
I had been in practice for 20 years. I closed my practice 10 years before, so all the patients in my practice I had been working with in a small town for at least 10 years. There were many of my own patients that I could not convince that these drugs weren't better. They would come in asking for Vox and Celebrex, and I would say, look, I know as much about this as anyone in the country who's not working in the drug companies, and these are not better drugs. And my patients would say, well, I saw them advertised, or even more emphatically, my friend had them prescribed by a specialist, implying you're just a family doctor. And many people said, if you don't prescribe them for me, I'll go to another doctor who will. And I could not convince people that I was looking at the original research and that it showed that the drugs were more dangerous.
Perhaps the worst part is that prescription drug ads have immersed us all in a persuasive drug culture that seems to have no boundaries. We are being reduced to helpless consumers who have no capacity to deal with challenges other than taking a pill. Last month, Tim Pawlenty, the Republican governor of Minnesota, called for a moratorium on prescription drug ads. It's about time. For most of the past half-century, there were tight restrictions on the general advertising of prescription drugs. These required doctors' guidance for a reason. So why should Madison Avenue get involved? But under heavy pressure from the drug and advertising industries, the government backed down in the late 1990s, and that started the tsunami. Spending on drug ads for the general public more than tripled between 1996 and 2001. It is now some $12 billion a year, which is more than 4 times what McDonald's spends on ads. In 1999, the typical American had 7 prescriptions a year, which is no small number. By 2010, that was up to 12 a year.